Hi, welcome to Caffè Fibonacci. I'm Tim Cole, and this is my colleague Rufus Deutschler.
Hi there.
And it's Sweet Nouveau season.
Sweet Nouveau.
Creative Suite CS4.
CS4.
We are covering new and exciting features in Creative Suite CS4. Today's episode, the printer is served. We're going to be talking about pre-flighting and pre-press features in Illustrator, Acrobat, and InDesign.
Yes.
New things in all three of those applications, and we're just going to dive in right away into Illustrator.
Yeah. And let's look at this document for a second. And what we can see here is that we have gradients. And with Illustrator CS4, for example, we have the ability now to do gradients that go into transparency. We could add drop shadows here, and all these are effects that generate pixels, right? And that get rasterized when these become a PDF or get transformed into
contrast to remaining vector, they get rasterized.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the important thing about that is under the Effects menu here is that we need to choose a Document Raster Effect setting. Okay? And the important thing here is that we choose the correct resolution for our intended output. For example, 72 ppi would be okay for the web. Okay? But since this has to go to print, we need to make sure that we actually choose high ppi here. Because otherwise, all of our effects that will get rasterized could get rasterized at a much lower resolution.
And look pixelated in the final
exactly,
output, which is bad.
Which is bad, and which is a question I hear a lot from our users. Okay, why is it that when I make a PDF for my Illustrator document, all my shadows get pixelized?
Well, you don't have enough pixels.
You don't have enough pixels.
They're pixelized anyway. They're rasterized anyway, but you're just not giving it enough
So the
pixels.
important thing here is to actually choose the correct resolution for your artwork. And if we say OK here, it's re-rasterizing my whole artwork here, also to show it to me on screen. By the way, if you make a new document, you can actually choose right there what the raster effect will be as you make the new document. So you can actually ensure ahead of time that the correct choice has been made. Okay, so this is really, really important. Also because when these effects get rasterized, there should really be a way also to preview that. Right? We have that in InDesign. But now we have it also inside of Illustrator.
It's very important for pre-press reasons to be able to predict or see where the rasterization is going to take place in your document in order to anticipate potential problems.
Exactly. And this we have now under the Window menu. We have the Flattener Preview. And if I choose that, I can refresh my preview here and see all of my document inside of that window. And for example, here I have selected to highlight transparent objects. And they get highlighted in red. Okay? Or I can say, show me all outline strokes. And we see that we have outline strokes around these people here.
An outline stroke is a stroke that's just been converted to a Bezier path object.
Exactly. Or all affected objects by the transparency. And we see that we have pretty complex regions in there, particularly created by the gradient that we have here, that will need to be rasterized as we create the PDF or go to print.
So what are you looking for? What sorts of problems would you want to detect with this Flattener Preview? Because for people that don't have InDesign and are not used to this, if you're new to Flattener Preview, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for the areas where this will happen. If, for example, I wanted this area to be a spot color without any sort of rasterization, I would need to change my illustration in order to do so.
Yeah. So in other words, you're looking for indications that things that shouldn't be rasterizing might be rasterizing.
Exactly.
As one example.
Yes. Yes.
And then you can often modify the design in such a way so that that doesn't happen.
Yes. I can make my design in other ways. I can.
Yes.
Okay. So this is one addition to Illustrator CS4, the Flattener Preview. And also, the other thing that we need to be able to preview inside of Illustrator, obviously, is under View, it's the proof setup. If we want to proof the colors, if we want to see the colors as they will be printed. Okay? If I turn this proof colors off, for example, we'll see on our artwork that all colors get more intense. Okay? The intensity that we can't actually achieve in four-color print.
Okay, it's the difference between the RGB color gamut versus the print CMYK color
Exactly.
gamut. Yeah.
So, if under View, I actually choose to proof the colors, I will see the colors, they get a little bit more dull
Yeah,
you don't say duller, do you? No.
A little bit more dull, no. You don't
More
say,
dull.
Well, you shouldn't say duller.
Okay,
people do.
So I
There's
won't
no
say
law against
duller.
it. Yeah.
The colors tend to be toned down a little bit to simulate the four-color ink process.
Right.
Okay, and again, if I go under View, Proof Setup, I can also choose the output method that I'm anticipating this document to be. In this case, it's US Web Coded Swap.
That's your target output profile.
That's my target output. But I can also customize that, for example, and say, let's see how that would look maybe on a Fogra 27 for Europe. Okay? And that's an ISO standard for Europe. And if I say, okay, we see that the colors change slightly. And according to the ISO standard, these colors will be a little bit stronger than the one from Swap, for example. Okay?
Right.
So it's a very easy way to preview that. And one thing that is particularly interesting to me is that they've added now ways to simulate how colorblind people would look at the artwork. Okay? Because a good design actually takes that into consideration, because not everybody sees color as it is. And believe it or not, I'm a graphic designer that actually is colorblind. I have this protanotopia. Protanopia, that's a difficult word. And I actually learned that word today.
It sounds like an Italian car, but it's not.
But it's not. It's not an Italian car. It's a small affliction that yours truly suffers of. It's an inability to see like subtle variations in greens and reds. Okay.
But Adobe employed him anyway, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yes. I'm from one of these protected
classes. Yeah,
classes,
you're protected status. Yeah. let's not air our dirty laundry.
Okay. All right. So one thing I can do here is you can look at the artwork like I would see it.
Yes.
Okay. So let's choose that for a second, and boom, see how the colors change slightly, and this is probably how yours truly would see that artwork.
Did you know that more men are colorblind than women?
Really?
Yeah. Women in general perceive more subtleties in hue, and more men are colorblind. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. But I know for a fact that many graphic designers are, in fact, colorblind.
Yeah, so the bottom line there is when our wives or girlfriends take us shopping and we say that they all look good, we might be telling the truth. When all the outfits if we say they all look good, we might actually be serious.
And that's especially true for me.
Yeah.
One very important feature that's been added in Illustrator CS4 is the ability to preview separations, or how the colors in the artwork will actually be separated in print. So to do that, we can go under Window, Separations Preview, and what we have here is a little panel that shows us all the colors that are being used in that artwork. So we have all the CMYK colors here, plus a Pantone plate. And if, for example, I turn off all the CMYK colors, it'll be very easy for me to find out where exactly that Pantone color is used inside of my artwork. I know this has been around for a long time in InDesign, but more and more Illustrator users have actually been asking for a feature like this, especially in the packaging industry, and also illustrators wanted to see how their artwork will ultimately separate for print. I can just toggle through these and look at the blacks, look at the yellows, etc., and really get a good idea of how these colors will separate and how they will turn out on the plates. That's a very interesting little feature that's been added to make sure that Illustrator users actually can be certain of how their artwork will be output.
Yeah, we've had that for quite a while in InDesign. It's a great feature in InDesign. InDesign adds a couple more features, but it's really great to see that finally arrive in Illustrator as well. It's really
with
helpful.
the flattener preview and the separations preview, now we can also do that in Illustrator.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
So should we go to InDesign now?
Let's go to InDesign.
Okay. Now, if you watched our last episode, you may or may not have noticed down at the bottom of this document window something new in InDesign. And I'm going to move down there very carefully here and zoom in. And you can see the little red problem indicator. I refer to that simply as the Preflight carbuncle, which you can look that up in
What's a carbuncle?
You don't want me to explain it,
okay.
But just trust me on it. That is the carbuncle of doom, and that indicates that I have problems in my layout. But what problems, you ask? Well, let's just double-click down here where it says 44 errors, and up will pop a brand new panel in InDesign, the Preflight panel. New in InDesign CS4 is live Preflight. Preflighting that happens as you're editing the document. So as you're creating objects and working the document, it's constantly checking based on a profile that you've created. It's identifying errors. So right now it says, I've got 44 errors in my document.
That's a lot of errors.
Wow, it is. Yes. It is. That's probably why I'm working in this job and not a real designer, too. Let's look at this for a second. First, let's go into Define Profiles and look at this very, very quickly. Basically, what you've got here now in InDesign CS4 is a much, much more, exponentially more robust pre-flighting engine than what we had before. Basically, we rewrote it from scratch. It's extensible, and it's very, very powerful. And what we've got is all these different functional areas having to do with your document properties. For example, links. Do I want to flag missing or modified links? I would say so, probably. And then if I'm using OPI, or if maybe there shouldn't be OPI links in there, well, I can check for those too. Then if you get down into color, there's things to do with transparency, with the various color spaces, ICC profiles, the way spot colors are set up, etc. I can go in there and create a pre-flight profile for myself, for my colleagues, and then distribute this. This is a distributable file that you can pass around, and everyone can standardize on this same pre-flighting profile. And it goes into text as well, checks for overset text, bleed, violations, all that stuff. You can make this very, very rich. For example, overset text. Who has not been burned by overset text? Now InDesign will automatically check for it. So
it actually already did in CS3, right? When you were actually printing a document that had overset text, it would tell you that there was overset text?
Yes.
So it was like a little anticipation to something more.
Yeah, it's a little tap on the shoulder saying, "Oh, by the way." But this way, you're alerted before that time, and you're not surprised by it, basically. And then let's look real quickly at the pre-flight options as well. You can choose your working profile, whether or not you want to embed the profile in the document, and what's to be included. All layers, just the visible layers, or everything.
If you embed it inside of the document, I will be able to check the same things if you send me the document?
That means the profile will travel with the document. So you don't even have to have this profile. It will be embedded in the document when I send it to you. Okay. So now what I've got here is all of these errors. And I look in here, okay, I've got one color error. And it says the color registration has not been allowed. Now this happens a lot out there because people may not know, some users may not know what the color, what the registration color is. Let's look at it in swatches. What's the difference between black and registration? They both look black to me, right?
Yeah, they do.
Average user may not know what that means.
Black is black.
Black, the black color swatch is, as you can see from that little pop-up hint, it just means it's 100% black ink. But registration color, on the other hand, prints on all plates, C, M, Y, and K.
And Pantone.
Yes. So you don't want to be coloring objects with registration typically. Okay.
Well, crop marks.
Well, you do want crop marks, but not page. Not page objects.
Yes.
That's the point.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. So this is telling me that not only do I have a registration color that's used where it shouldn't be, but look, it's on an imported PDF. Okay? So this is actually checking inside imported files as well. Wow. This means that the PDF needs to be corrected. Otherwise, I could wind up with a serious problem.
And I could do that with Acrobat, actually.
Yeah, that's correct. So down here, we've also got two examples of overset text, one in a text frame and one in a table cell. And notice here that I got a little hyperlink, just like in that links panel. If I click on the hyperlink, it will take me directly to the problematic table cell and highlight it for me, so I'll know exactly which one it is. And then down here on the bottom here, it has both a problem description. Right now I've got overset text of 49 characters, and it also recommends a fix. I can either resize the container or I can edit the text.
Okay.
So not only takes you to the error.
Foolproof.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
it even tells
you make something foolproof, and the world builds a better fool, right? Okay. But we're giving you a lot of help here. Yeah. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to show you now in an earlier episode, we talked about this links panel, and we talked about this folder 0 notion. Let's go into panel options, and I'm going to choose folder 0. And folder 0 is a way of identifying the folder in which a linked asset lives, okay, on my hard drive. Now, notice if we go back to our pre-flight panel, I've got a whole lot of image resolution problems. I've got a bunch of images that are too low res, okay?
Yeah.
And I need to do something about it. I need to get a higher res version of these or change the way they're scaled or something. So in a lot of workflows, what happens is people have a folder called low res, where you've got JPEG placeholders, right? And somewhere downstream in production they're going to be replaced. Low-res JPEGs might be replaced with high-res PSD or TIFF images, right? So here's a great new feature. This is part of this links re-architecture. Let's go to one of these images here. So this guy right here, this very damp Hollywood actor climbing out of a swimming pool, because they swim with their clothes on in Hollywood, yeah. It's a very, very, very common thing. And so it's in a folder called low res. Check this out. This is so cool. On the flyout menu, you not only have relink to relink an individual image to like a high res image, I also have this command here now called relink to folder. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these images. I think I've got 3 images here that are in a folder called low res. I'm going to select relink to folder and pop out into my parent folder because I know that I've got a
high-res folder.
I do. There it is, right there. Now, so it's going to look for high-res versions, and I have these 2 options here. Match same file name and extension, or match the same file name, but use a different extension. In this case, I'm going to say TIFF, because these are all TIFF images here, okay? So I'm just going to say choose, and now InDesign is going to think, and it's going to go through and iterate through all of my links here that I chose, and boom, replace them with the high-res versions.
Wow.
So that's a really cool new feature, relink to folder. So let's go back to you now, Rufus, and talk about what's new in Acrobat in this area.
In Acrobat 9. And here again, you know, in Illustrator, we've seen now that we can preview the separations, we can preview the flattener settings inside of the document directly. And most of these things we can also do inside of Acrobat. So just to check our PDF. For example, under Advanced here, Print Production, we have the ability to have the output preview. Okay? And that's pretty much like what we had in Illustrator or InDesign, the possibility to turn plates on and off. But what we also have here is this thing called the Ink Manager, which allows me also to change these inks to something else. For example, if I want to get rid of this Pantone color, I could actually alias it to some other color that I have in there. And a typical example of that is, in this case, we're using Pantone 187C, okay? And maybe there's another Pantone 187 something else that is being used in the document, and that would make 2 plates. I can actually alias that back to a single plate, yes? Or I can say, no, I want to print this only CMYK. And here what I can say is convert all spots to process, okay? So this Pantone color has now become a CMYK color. And if I say OK to that, what we see is that in the output preview, the Pantone plate has actually disappeared. Okay? So now we are ready to print this piece without having a 5th plate for the spot color.
And it's important to note, InDesign has had this feature for quite some time as well. And it's important to let people know that making this change in the Ink Manager is not changing the file.
No, it's not.
All this changes is the output on how it actually separates.
Yes, yes. In that same window, we can also have color warnings. For example, show us the colors that are overprinting. Okay, in this case, we don't have any overprinting in the CMYK colors. Let's go back to the separation here. We also have the possibility to check the total ink coverage on the page. For example, these areas here around the text, these shadow areas here, if we go over there with the cursor, we can actually see in the separations panel here that all these colors are very dense. For example, the cyan is at 93%, magenta is 87%, and then we have 58 and 59. And all that actually adds up to be more than the ink coverage that we've allowed inside of this window. If the ink coverage is too high, what can happen is that the colors smudge, or that they transfer to sheets as they come out of the printing press.
Right, because printing is a mechanical process.
Exactly.
Having too many layers of ink can cause different types of problems.
Yeah. So this can be very useful. I mean, ask your printer about that, and your printer will be able to tell you on his machine what the total area coverage may be. Okay, and then you can add that inside of that window and check it. Okay, and then adequately change your document to avoid these problems. The other thing that I wanted to show here in Acrobat 9, which is very important, is the possibility to do the pre-flight, to pre-flight this document. And what we have in this window, which has been completely reorganized since Acrobat 8, is that, for example, here we have profiles, okay? And the profiles have been divided from the single checks and the single fix-ups, okay? In the past, everything was together, and it was really hard to kind of tell, you know, what is this going to do? Is this going to only check something, or is this also going to do a fix-up? Okay. And the fix-up permanently changes your PDF, actually. Okay. So, for example, let's see in the checks here, if there are any grayscale images with a resolution between 100 and 120 ppi. Okay, and that's a check. And we can say Analyze, and we found that there are no problems of that type in that PDF document. Or, if we go back to Profiles and go to Fix-Ups, what we can do, for example, is convert the whole document to black and white. Okay? And this is also something that was kind of important, because what if we want to print this just on a black plate? Okay? We don't want that rich black that you were talking about before, the registration color. Okay?
That's the ultra-rich black, the decadently rich black.
Yes, the decadently rich black. Now, let's say we want to put this in a daily newspaper. Okay? So what we can do is simply say fix using this specification here, and fix, and we're going to save it as something else, black and white. Let's put it in the Caffè Fibonacci folder, and save. And it's converting, it's applying all the fix-ups to the colors. And if we now go back to Advanced, Print Production, Output Preview, we can see that now we have only one plate, okay, with the black. Okay? The fastest way, actually, to get your vector art very quickly into grayscale. Okay? And that's something that can be very, very useful to many people. Let's go back to my previous document here, and under Advanced, Print Production, Preflight, the other thing I wanted to show is that we have access to standards very rapidly now. If I click on that button, Standards here, Acrobat actually asks me, what standard do you want to convert this document in? So we have PDFX, which is a standard for printing. Okay? We have PDFA, which is for archiving, which becomes increasingly important because publishers start to have the necessity to be sure that their PDF content will be viewable, let's say, in 15 years. Okay? How many old documents do I have on my old computers that I will never, ever be able to open again? Okay? So the PDFA standard is actually very important because like all standards, what we have here is all these developers, either hardware or software, they meet together, and Adobe is part of that group, of the standard definition group. And these people then sit there and discuss, what should be in a PDF, what can we allow in a PDF that we will support in the future.
So it's basically a standard to ensure that it's a set of standards that they basically commit to support it indefinitely, so that if you archive something in this format now,
you will
10 years from now, you'll be able to open it without a problem.
And PFE is PDF for engineering. Okay, that's a whole different world, which is a bit of less interest to us because we're designers, right? So we're talking print production here. But let's say PDFX. If I continue here, what we find here is that we have different types of PDFXs. PDFX1A is probably the more stupid PDF, right? Can we say that?
We'll just call it. It is a stupid PDF.
Because it's flattened. It's a flattened, stupid PDF. I mean, this will guarantee that this PDF will print.
It's a lowest common it's a lowest common denominator standard.
And then we have PDFX3, which actually allows also for color management, etc. PDFX4 and PDFX4P. And if you're interested to know more about these standards, we have little explanations here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to just transform that PDF in the lowest common denominator. Okay, the PDFX1A, and continue on that. And here I have a conversion profile, and let's actually use that profile. And this is the output that I want to use for Photograph 39. Or, since we're in the US, what I can do is US web-coded swap. Okay? And it's going to change it to that. And what I'm going to say is simply save as, PDFX, and save. And what this is going to do, it's going to go through the whole document and apply fix-ups and modify the document, maybe convert transparencies that are present in the PDF, include all fonts that the document may be needing to print properly, and creating a PDF that will be printable literally by any even older raster image processors.
Post-script devices. It's marching through the document, committing mass transparent side, and we're watching it.
And
we're
watching it live here. And the pre-flight went well, and this is now a PDFX, which I can send into a printing line, into a printing production workflow.
Yes.
Okay. And with this, we've seen that we have all these new features inside of Illustrator, inside of Acrobat 9, inside of InDesign itself, that will allow us to work safer, like sleep better at night, because we know that we can avoid problems, we can preview potential problems, and we can even fix problems. Well,
what could be better?
What could be better?
What could be better?
So with that, Tim, I think we're done with this episode.
That's it for this episode, yes.
That's it for this episode, and see you next time.
We'll see you next time for more of Sweet Nouveau Creative Suite CS4. Thanks. Bye.